This episode of the Pu'u Muay Thai podcast is brought to you by pmtlifestyle.com, Authentic Muay Thai Lifestyle by Pu'u. Definitely go check out the website at pmtlifestyle.com for some awesome lifestyle merchandise. That's for those of you out there either involved in Muay Thai, looking at getting involved in Muay Thai, and embrace a healthier lifestyle to live the life of Nak Muay. Go check it out. So Wadi Kop, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Pu'u Muay Thai podcast. Okay, so today we have Coach Kevin coming in on the podcast today. We actually just went for a hike earlier this morning and stuff. How's that book?
It's very good.
Yeah. Are you reading the Thai page?
Yeah.
But we're looking at a Muay Thai book right now. Actually,
I can translate this if you need me to.
I'm sure you can.
Want me to?
Well, what are you going to get your dad's wife to translate it?
It says, step forward in a little bit with your right foot and then shift your weight to that foot. That's what it says right here.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Yep.
So what's it called again? It's the just Muay Thai book. I actually picked that up in the airport in Phuket.
$450.
Bought.
What's that, like $3?
So that's like $12-13.
That's not so bad.
No, it's not bad. For what it was, it's a cool little book. Has cool diagrams and stuff like that in there.
It comes with a business proposition.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
We'll talk about that because I'm serious, man. It's good. It's good content. Like I went through and I posted a bunch of the pictures. That was like our social media for a while. I was posting pictures from that because there's like some interesting stuff that you don't typically see like in Muay Thai. Does it smell like a new book still?
No, it smells like a spice rack.
It smells like a spice rack?
I don't know why.
That makes sense. So if you guys don't know, Kevin's been coaching with us for, 2 years now? 3?
Coaching, it all kind of just blends together. But
yeah.
I think conservatively, 2 years.
3, since 2017, I think that's when we started the teens program.
Yeah.
October 2017.
Coming up on 3 years then, yeah.
Yeah, 3 years. Some change, whatever, in between. So I asked you to come on today because we had some of the student requests about podcasts.
I feel like I invited myself to
You
be
did.
honest.
You did. You're like, so are we doing a podcast? But also we had some of the students who were asking about coaches, and I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So we're here today. Still locked down. No Muay Thai training legally. It's illegal to do Muay Thai. Yeah. So how long have you been doing martial arts for?
What year is it?
It's 2020.
30 years.
Do you want to know what day it is too, or what? How many days, how many hours? 30 years of martial arts. What did you start off with?
Karate.
Shitoru
karate. So
yeah!
Its main focus is straight, direct movement.
Where in Japan does that originate from?
A little island.
Very similar to Okinawan karate, like one of the small islands that's over there. Okay. So, how long did you do that for? Like, when's the last time you practiced?
When was the last time I practiced? This morning.
Meditation or?
Meditation, like the system?
No. I mean, that martial art. When's the last time you practiced?
That one, that studio. What happened was he got called in to be the national coach for karate.
In Japan or where?
No, for America.
In the U.S. Oh, yeah. When they started pushing for Olympic stuff?
Yeah, so he started making inroads in there.
That makes sense.
So he closed the studio, and he moved to Colorado Springs. And
they have the Olympic training center there.
Yeah. So he was there. He was pretty much I think it was the USFK or USKF.
Whatever the karate federation
is something.
Yeah, I think it's just USA Karate, I think.
Yeah, so he's the karate coach.
Yeah.
Which is, it was great to be able to be trained by somebody like that, but I was 5.
Yeah. It's like, Kevin, stop looking in the mirror.
Yeah. They're very strict, and 5 is a tough age, especially to be in he spoke very little English, mostly Japanese. I knew when I was getting yelled at. I knew when I wasn't doing things right.
How could you tell you weren't doing things right? We talked about this on podcast with my brother, in Thailand. It was the trainer would make just no and give you this face you farted in his face.
It's you learn fast enough that you and everyone else in the class are doing different things, and then you go, I don't think that's right. But it was invaluable because a lot of the fundamentals that I still teach the same fundamentals that he taught me.
What were those?
I can't tell you.
You have to kill me?
You have to come to my class.
Oh. Do you hear that? So it's a cliffhanger. Speaking of classes, I know we haven't had you on Zoom, but maybe we get you up on Zoom class to try it.
Yeah?
If you're around, yeah, it's fun.
Can I see the people?
You can see everybody.
No, I'm not. I'm very interactive.
No, I know you are. That was one of those things that was a trick for me. It was like, I feel like I could be very verbal. The physiognomy, like the hands-on stuff, I can do. I can do the verbal stuff. I can show people. But like as far as like learning styles go for Zoom, like the online training is like you're missing out on the hands-on correction stuff, which like really tested me.
It's gonna make you better.
Yeah, exactly. It made me focus on being better at those other two aspects, and that's what I talked to our students about. I was like, "Hey, I know. Yeah, you're not in the academy. That's not what we're allowed to do right now. And especially when this thing first hit, I was like, hey, I feel you, but this is gonna be going on longer than 2 weeks.
Yeah, so you're gonna develop new skills as an instructor. And
then for students and stuff like that too. Yeah. If they're more of a hands-on learner, they gotta learn how to be a bit more visual and like auditory learner. They have to learn how to adapt to that and make those weaknesses stronger. Even though they're not gonna always be the strongest, it's gonna make them better.
Right.
So, so they gotta come to your class, come in and check out what your fundamentals are, right?
Yep. I've taught them.
Yeah.
I've taught a few times. I definitely didn't quote him when I taught him, but I mean, they're all there. I mean, enough people have come to my class. I've probably learned a few of them. That's the one thing about martial arts is like the principles are all the same. Hit them. Don't get hit by them. That's pretty much it, right?
And don't die. Don't die. And if you've sparred with Kevin, don't get axe kicked.
Don't get axe kicked. Don't stay too far. Don't stay too close either.
If you guys don't know, how tall are you?
Almost 6'2".
And you're like 80% legs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And my legs go up to about my nipples.
Yeah, Kevin's got very, very long legs. Yeah. So, like, Agile Knockweed's even like, Kevin, your legs are too long. I have to wait forever.
Wait too long.
I have to wait too long to hit you. It's true, though. You have to, like, wait. It's like, I have to, like, do my best to defend myself in order to hit you, like, one time. It's like, crap, man. But I've always had to deal with that. Other people, they're like, my wife, she gets frustrated as hell sparring with you. I'm like,
she's done it maybe once.
Yeah.
I had to pay her almost a second time. I don't think I want to do that.
I don't want to spar you anymore.
Yeah. That was the first day I met her, too. I was like, yeah, okay, let's spar. And did not start off on a very good foot,
Yeah, angry Norwegian woman.
If you're Hopefully she doesn't hear that.
If you're listening to this, honey, we love you. That's why I love you. And the other day, me and her were just sparring. That's been a benefit. We've been training more together, and been working through like some mental. What I feel are mental blocks through some of that stuff. She's making headway.
It's a tough thing to do.
Oh yeah, especially yes, but she's young enough in martial arts where I feel it's easier to develop that a little bit more. Yeah, people are set in their ways, but if you go into it with the right mindset, like this is for me to get better myself, and then you understand that you have things you need to work on, then it's easier for them to approach it if they're not already stuck in their ways.
Right.
So, so you did karate, and then how long did you do karate because you did other martial arts?
I did Shito-ryu for about 3 years.
Hitting this,
I'm so sorry. Sorry, so I need something to emphasize. Okay, so I did Shito-ryu for about 3 years.
Which was clapping my hand.
Yeah. And then Shotokan. I did Shotokan for 2 or 3 years. The problem is traditional martial arts started closing in like the early 90s. And that's kind of when I started. We were kind of changing into traditional martial arts, started going into everybody wins, please participate. We don't want to challenge anybody. So you started to lose that really, really harshly competitive edge that karate had for a very long time.
Yeah.
And then MMA was getting started too at the same time. So you're kind of stuck at this bifurcation of like go into these new systems that aren't really tested yet. Talk a little bit more towards the mic. Yeah, you just keep it. Or you can kind of go into a system that's not really going to teach you much, but you're going to feel great about yourself because they're going to profess how good you are, even though you were probably total crap.
I have a good analogy for that. I'm not going to name any names, but we're working a booth. You already know the story. He's just laughing. So, if you guys didn't know, we do some like local booths and stuff like that, and we have like a punching bag, and usually it's like if you can punch it for 1 minute, you get like 2 week free lesson or whatever it may be. The offer may be for somebody. And, this had nothing to do with the punching. Like, the punching is always, it's fun to watch. People are always like, I don't know what I'm doing. And they do it anyways. It's totally great. But we had somebody who, I've been doing Taekwondo for, 5 years? Something like long, like 5 or 6 years.
Long enough that they should have been better.
Yeah. So Kevin goes, all right, well, show me your round kick right here on the bag. And, I give it to this kid because maybe he came a long way since then. And you know what? His kick did get high. I'll give that. The kid had some height to it.
Yeah.
But there was just, it wasn't a very good kick. Mm-hmm. And then we had another kid that came by from another martial arts school, and they've been training like a year and a half. And we're like, well, show us your kick. And, well, bam! We're like, oh, well, I
almost put a hole in our bag.
Yeah, I know what to expect from each of those schools. We have people that come over and start training Muay Thai. But it's interesting to see because it's like I'm sure, like you said, it's like a participation thing. You see a lot of like martial arts school like guaranteed black belt in 2 years. Yeah. It's like, how do you guarantee that? Can't.
You cannot. No.
Unless you're just giving
Not in
it out.
Spirit. You can definitely just hand them out.
Yeah, you can just hand it out, which people are doing.
Yeah.
Because it comes into like. I understand from a business standpoint, but also on like an expectation. Yeah, black belt means something different.
Yeah, but when I was a kid, black belt. It's like, holy, you're a black belt. Yeah, you didn't mess with black belts. Now it's like, no problem. We'll put you on the black belt fast track. What do they call them? McDojos.
I feel like
pay your money and you'll get your rank.
I feel like it's it's different for like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I feel.
Yeah.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu still has like legitimate, like depending on the school, of course. But even like the ones that are maybe more lenient, still you're gonna get some badass people who are black belts.
That's just the rubrics and the expectations of what a black belt is just. It's not something that I think a lot of Americans want to pursue.
No.
It's just too damn hard.
Yeah, you're going to train for 10 years.
Yeah, we need to lower the bar. Yeah, nobody wants to train for 10 years. Just so they can have the right to teach the instructor's classes when he doesn't want to show up. That's all you get.
Maybe open your own school one day.
Maybe, yeah, so you can like live, what is it, hand to mouth?
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, it comes into like you see like Taekwondo and karate and whatnot. I feel like it's almost like getting your high school diploma.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, cool, you can start working.
You can now start your business.
You can start your business. You're learning just now begun because now you have to actually learn all this other stuff of like, you got your base education, now you need to learn more. So what I've seen a lot of is guys who've been in martial arts and successful martial arts for a long time. Remember you met Nick Wilson.
Yeah.
It's like those guys. They're all like, high degree levels of black belts in like Kempo karate. But then they ended up getting like their black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They ended up training Muay Thai. Like legitimate people. They didn't train out of their dojo from their sensei who didn't know anything about it. They went out and sought this knowledge for people. And they ended up becoming like all around just like legitimate martial artists and stayed relevant that way. So and one of those things that was interesting is they started integrating that into like their karate curriculum for their kids. Like, hey, we're going to teach basic takedown defense, how to mount, how to get out of mount, how to pass guard. Those things like in jiu-jitsu terms for those of you out there might not know those. Or like in Muay Thai, like, hey, how to throw like a strong leg kick, how to kick with your shin rather than your foot, like you see a lot in karate and stuff too. It's like more like chambered kicks. So they started integrating those more into like their kids programs. And I thought that was always really pretty like good mixture of like that learning life lessons, but also learning like martial arts that work on top of practical like those practical application for self-defense. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with like somebody wanting to go learn kata and form and meditation. I think there's a place for all that stuff too,
if it's balanced with the practical application of the techniques you're developing. If not, it's like glorified dancing.
Yeah, and you do get benefits out of it.
No, you get health benefits, but I'm telling you, in a fight you start doing some like pumse or page, you're gonna get your ass kicked. Can I curse on the podcast?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, cool.
Curse. I don't care.
I'll ask you after the fact.
If you want to, yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Traditional martial arts take too long to get good at, so people don't want to, take the time to get good at the stuff. Because you do. You have to develop the mind. You have to develop the body, and then because last thing you want to do is give people these techniques that can hurt, harm, and destroy people. to individuals. You're not necessarily. There's a lot of responsibility that martial arts instructors have when they give these types of ideas and techniques to people, and you're kind of giving them a loaded gun and so.
This is how you kill somebody.
Yeah, this is how you kill somebody. Make sure you don't do it. So you really kind of have to. You have to develop the mind and the spirit of the person before you really start to give them things that they can actually hurt and kill people with. So that's another.
You give a little bit. Yeah, you give a little bit, but then you make sure they earn the, I guess, to show that they're developmentally ready to start learning that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Like they're open for they have their base level education. Now it's time to if you're in high school, you learn about sex ed. Then all of a sudden you go in to become biology or whatever it may be. You're going to learn a lot more about that. Yeah, and it's you're not going to teach that to a high schooler.
Yeah, but you can't stop at sex ed. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
If that's all you learn, you're just going to go, There's a joke in there somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere in there. I'm sure we can roll back and cut these out.
We'll just edit that in.
Okay, so then you wrestled in high school and stuff too, right?
We skipped some years,
Yeah, skipped some years. What did you do between... So you did Taekwondo, karate.
So karate, first two systems were karate, Shitoru and Shotokan, and then I started learning Hapkido, which...
That was very popular, it seemed like, for a while here.
Aikido was definitely popular.
Well, I mean, Hapkido, though, too. I remember there was 2 schools, I think, that had it, right?
I think they're probably the same school, too, just different locations.
Okay.
Yeah. So I learned Hapkido, which a lot of people term the ugly cousin to Aikido. Even though it's, I found it to be far more practical in its application.
They have some pretty sick sweeps.
Good sweeps. They have really good leg defense, kick defense, knife defense, weapon defense. It's what they teach. They combine Taekwondo and Hapkido, and they teach that to rock soldiers or the military in Korea, which is my instructor, Mashi. He was a Korean rock soldier. So it's kind of like special forces for the Korean military.
They call them rock soldiers?
Yeah. That's a brutal training.
Yeah, what a menial name for something that might be total badass. Kill you.
Yeah.
3 times before you hit the ground.
Yeah, he was a legit
maybe
dude.
5.
Really nice guy, as long as you didn't upset him. I never saw him upset, so I always stayed on his good side, which was his right side. I said,
that's his good side.
That's his good side. So, and then I started with him probably when I was 11, and then I started teaching for him at 13. Would open up the gym. Teach all the kids' classes, teach some intermediate classes, and then I would train for the rest of the night with him. And that went up until high school. And then high school, I started boxing, jiu-jitsu, and collegiate wrestling. I guess you call it scholastic wrestling because you're still in high school.
Yeah, scholastic. But it's like freestyle wrestling, isn't it?
It wasn't like freestyle wrestling. I think that's where the rules differ. So that's why they call it scholastic and collegiate. Never wrestled in college. What else did I do? And then I started doing some really obscure stuff, like capoeira. You ever heard of capoeira?
Yeah, of course.
You ever played capoeira before?
No. What's funny is the studio that we subleased from in Santa Barbara, for our Santa Barbara program, the guy, he runs a capoeira program, the one that owns the space. So I've seen it before with the drums and music. It's pretty cool. Yeah. It looks like fun, festive martial art, and a couple of the guys train Muay Thai with us, and it's so different. Coach Ryan was telling me, he's like, man, I'll get them kicking this way, and then they do capoeira for a week, and they'll train with me for a week, and they lose all of it because it's so so different.
Oh, they're diametrically opposed.
Yeah, completely different. One's hey, you kick from the ground, Yeah, so you messed around with capoeira a little bit.
I played capoeira for probably about 3 or 4 years. I really enjoyed it. I was teaching up at a martial arts gym in Carpinteria, and I was teaching Taekwondo and Hapkido, and then a friend of mine was teaching Jiu-Jitsu and Kenjutsu, which is kind of a bit more. It's kind of like Kendo, but there's forms. There's a lot more sparring, and a lot more kind of like self-defense.
Okay.
I started studying Kempo up there also, and then I also started studying Kung Fu. It was a lot. It was just me and 2 other martial arts instructors, and it was just like this think pot, and and we would just trade ideas and work with each other, and
just train.
That was a really fun time. And
it sounds like. How old were you then?
I think I was 18, 19 when I started teaching.
That's a good time to be involved in something like that.
Yeah. That's when I was.
Were those guys older than you, or same age?
We're all about the same age. In and around 2 or 3 years. So
late teens, early 20s.
Late teens, early 20s. Yeah.
A good time to be involved in something like that. And speaking of, we were just talking about one of the students who came with us when he was 15 or 16. Aiden.
Aiden.
Yeah, he was on the podcast
16,
a couple
17,
episodes ago. Yeah. Now he's lost like close to 100 pounds.
Also funny, yeah.
Yeah, you were just telling me you saw him. You're like, who are you?
This guy came up to me, he knew my name, and was talking to me like he knows me. And I'm like, excuse me, who are you? And I was like, oh my goodness. Once I actually got close enough, I recognized him.
Once this lockdown first started, because I lended him some Thai pads from the academy, and I saw him like, man, Aiden, every time I see you, you're losing weight. So props to him, man. But you think about being involved with it when you're like 18, 19 to like formulate those ideas. Mm-hmm. And honestly, like talking to kids like that, it makes me remember how it was at the age. Like, oh, I want to go to Thailand. Oh, I want to do these things. I want to do a lot of this stuff. And developmentally, it's like, hey, you can do it. And see somebody like actively going after it. Like he's the one that like got me. Have like Matt Lucas on here 2 podcasts ago, and then the last one I had Christian Pastore from Argentina is the one that fought Sanchai. Mm-hmm. And that was inspired because he was asking me these questions. I'm like, man, I know some of these people that have been through this and have done like, you know, even more than like what I did with this. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, like Matt's been living in Thailand for, I don't know, like 10 years now. And then, you know, Christian was just over there for a sponsorship, fighting professionally, like, or the same gym Carity was at. Mm-hmm. So it was like, hey, like share more of these stories to tell people like, hey, you can do this. And to be around that, I'm sure when you're like 18, 19, it probably helps form like, hey, I could do this, or hey, I want to try that,
right?
And kind of open up the world, the gates a little bit, because I feel like here, you went to Ventura High School or Oxnard. Yeah. So I feel like the public school system here really like tries to hammer you into place. Like, no, don't think big.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. You know, just graduate, go to college, get a job.
Just learn enough to keep the machines moving.
Exactly. So they're talking about like for me, I changed courses when I went to a continuation school. I graduated on time, but like one of my teachers there, Chip Frazier, ended up being like one of the mentors. Like, no, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like, what do you like? He looked at me because I'd be engaged in classes. Like, what are you doing here? Because like, everybody else there was like fighting, drugs. Either they were pregnant, like a girl. Of course. Right. Or, you know, they got their girlfriends pregnant and they're at school together and they had a kid and they needed some help with that kind of stuff.
Sidebar.
Yeah, what?
My wife's pregnant. I just want everybody to
know.
know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're announcing it.
I'm announcing it.
Yeah, so Coach Kevin's going to have you have a child.
We have one.
You have one child, Bodie, and you have another one coming on the way.
Yep.
Congrats, man.
We're about a month in right now. So.
Yeah. It was pretty funny. You're like, yeah, we're going to try to have a child. And the next conversation, hey, we have a child.
This is all true.
It may or may not have to do with your martial arts ability.
I blame the training.
And health. You know, your wife's healthy and stuff too.
Yes, we're both healthy.
Oh, and also, if people didn't know, Kevin also got married.
I did get married.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
When was that?
March.
Beginning of March. It was before all this shit started
Before all of this started to kick
Right
off,
before.
Yeah. Yep.
It was like, what, a week and a half before?
Yeah, we were sitting on the boat and we had nothing to do. And she looked at me and she goes, you want to get married? And I said, more than anything. So we did the paperwork right there and we got up the next day, got some clothes, and went to the courthouse, got married.
In Ventura, right? Ventura Courthouse.
Yep.
Yeah, courthouse weddings. I guess they're in style right now.
They're in
style. I wonder if they're still doing those.
I think the government's just...
I don't know.
Is it open right now?
I don't know. Some of the stuff's like open by appointment.
Yeah.
But I would assume that you could probably get somebody to do it like virtually. I don't know.
Who knows?
I think show up and sign it. I'll tell you this though, the city definitely took my tax money. You know? Like they were definitely open for that. I went over there to go pay it. I went to the office, and when the stuff was going down, I'm like, oh, let's go see. Like it was like literally like so it was 19th we closed. That was Friday, 20th, 21st. On 22nd. Mm-hmm. It was on Monday. I went over there. I need to go to the tax office, like to the city business development office, and go pay tax. And I go there and everything's closed. I'm like, what the hell? It's like, yeah, we're closed indefinitely for the foreseeable future. It's like, okay. So I took a picture of the sign and I called the number on there, and they're like, yeah, we can take payment over the phone. And like they take all this stuff. You know, they ended up sending us like our updated certificate and stuff like that too. And I thought it was pretty fucking funny. I'm like, you guys take my money right now, but can't get married, can't do business. It's a crazy time in that regard. But yeah, they're open to take money. So I mean, I think there's not a whole lot of money in marriage. Maybe I don't know. Yeah. I'm sure there's a way. It's probably something online.
It costs us $100, so
Yeah,
I highly doubt it's lucrative.
No. But if they do 20 of them a day, it's $2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, maybe you get ordained as a minister. That's something that my mom did.
Really?
She got like through the state because I guess with all these like personal restrictions with her photography stuff. If you guys don't know, my mom, she's a wedding photographer. She also does some of our content photography and stuff like that too for like Pu'u Muay Thai and Pu'u Muay Thai lifestyle. She got ordained to be able to be like to do like the wedding ceremony because they're saying that only a certain amount of people could be at the wedding ceremony, including the bride and groom. So, and if you have a photographer there, that takes away an additional person. Honestly, the photographer can marry you. She's like, I'm just doing it. She hasn't used it yet, but she's like, I'm like, go mom, being ahead of it. It's like, that's outside thinking.
That's definitely.
Yeah, I guess she shared it somewhere and people didn't like that because it was like, oh, they're taking away other people's jobs. And it's like, oh, well, if that's what somebody wants, then they can get it.
You just let those people let those people complain.
Yeah, it's funny. So, what did you do? I know you lived in Spain for a bit, right?
Lived in Spain. Yeah,
For how
so
long?
I was, I think in my early 20s, I started studying Kung Fu, and I got in touch with like a good group of people. Started getting...
In Kung Fu?
branching out, yeah. Started branching out and kind of developing other aspects of myself outside of martial arts, and music was one of those I think...
Classical guitar, right?
Yeah, I really think that people should pick up an instrument in some way, because it will definitely... It'll help your martial arts will help your arts will help your... It's just kind of this wonderful, positive feedback loop.
For sure. And like the rhythm, timing stuff, that's something that like when I started realizing how that relates to martial arts and like fighting, I was like, oh shit, like crap, all right, how am I going to relate this to somebody else who's never done music before?
Right. Well, the thing is, I found is like if you want to be able to fall into someone else's rhythms. It helps to really pick up someone's timing and be able to and find it faster than they find yours. So if you're a bit more sensitive to rhythms, I mean, I know we're speaking kind of a bit. We're not being super objective about it. It's a subjective experience.
Yeah.
It's a kind of idiomatic feeling that you have when you play martial arts for so long. But you can kind of find someone's rhythm, and you can see their timing, you notice their breathing, and if you can pick up on theirs before they pick up on yours, then you're able to make opportunities happen for you before they can do the opposite to you.
Yeah.
And again, it's very, very hard to actually put into words, which is I'm kind of fumbling around it. But I think people who felt it know exactly what the hell I'm talking about.
A good way to see it, like I'll relate it to Muay Thai, is you'll see like Bukao or Yudson Clay. You know they're going to throw a left kick. They know it's just one of those things, there's going to be a left kick coming at you. And every fighter that comes up is like, oh, I'm ready for it. I know, I'm prepared to fight him. And it's like, oh, still gets blasted by left kicks. Doesn't block him, takes him on the forearm, takes him on the head, takes him on the legs. Maybe they check one, but it ends up just the timing of what their strikes. Maybe they'll sell like a certain timing to them, then they start breaking it, and just their experience, like they're like one step ahead. Like Christian was on here, he was talking about when he fought Saenchai, he's like, man, you think like, I'm going to throw a jab and low kick against Saenchai, he's like, oh, you can't do it because he already knows you're going to do it. Because he's so been there, he's like, he's heard this song so many times, he knows what's about to happen.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a good analogy for it. It's like you guys have your favorite song, you know the lyrics to it, the drum hits,
exactly
everything. Everything's going to happen. So after a while, like if you're involved in music, you're going to realize what comes next in like a musical sequence. You're going to be like, oh, this is going to happen next. It's like you could jam out and you know what the other person's going to play.
Yeah, so I like to think of it as like cross-training.
Yeah.
And then once you're able to pick up other people's rhythms, you know when to interject, you know when to punctuate, you know when they're going to be open. So you know when the rests are for the music speakers in here.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I started studying classical guitar. It took me out to Spain. Trained a little bit when I was out there.
Where in Spain were you?
I moved to Granada.
And where's
then,
that? Where like in relation
southern section
is south.
So right on the
Spain.
bottom. Right on the bottom, southern sections. A nice, beautiful Mediterranean city. And then I moved to Madrid, and then went east to Barcelona, and then I moved into the Pyrenees because if you've never been to the Pyrenees, it's one of the most beautiful places you'll ever see.
Mountain area?
Yeah, it's right on the border of southern France and northern Spain.
That's where the Great Pyrenees dog breeds are from.
Yeah.
Pyrenees
So I did some training out there, and It was a beautiful time, but my focus at that point, because I'd been doing martial arts for 20 years at the time, was music.
Yeah.
But I really think you do have to balance yourself if you're going to do something for your entire life.
I remember the first time I saw you with your long fingernails. I was like, "Are you doing drugs?" You're like, "No, I'm a classical guitar player." I'm like, "Wait, what?" Because I didn't know yet. You're like, "Yeah, I'm playing I'm playing a wedding in like 2 weeks. I had to grow out my fingernails so I could play guitar for it."
Yep.
So, are you still doing any of that?
Yeah, I still play.
And you still play for hire?
If the price is right.
You heard that, folks. The price is right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you went to Spain, came back, and what were you doing then for work once you came back to the U.S.?
I was finishing my undergrad in classical guitar studies.
Classical music, right?
Yeah. So I was teaching martial arts at a Tong Soo Do school.
And were you doing guitar lessons at that time, too?
I was still teaching. Yeah, I was teaching music also. Mm. And then, I don't know why. I don't remember when I graduated. 2000. Something like that.
The 2000s.
Yeah. And then I moved back from the valley back to Ventura, and I think a few years later I fell into contact with you actually.
Yeah, I remember when you came in. You had your scraggly beard, and I think you had your motorcycle then.
Oh yeah, I was definitely riding a motorcycle.
Yeah,
this was pre-family.
Yeah,
back when
Kevin
my death wouldn't matter to anybody.
Yeah,
so
he was like,
oh, whatever.
Right, dude, that was a badass motorcycle. Do you still have it?
I do.
What are you gonna do with it?
I'm probably going to let it collect more dust before I decide. I'll probably give it to Bodie when he turns about 16.
If you keep it that long, you'll end up like selling it to somebody.
I doubt I'll sell it. I love that thing.
Yeah, I think it has a nice bike. What kind of bike is it?
It's a 2013 KLR.
Yeah. So, you took good care of that thing too. I remember seeing it all the time outside the academy. Good stuff.
It's trusty. So,
you started training with us like when we first opened up in Ventura.
Yeah, I watched the gym transform right in front of our eyes.
Literally, that shit was crazy. Were you there when we had the green walls? Or
Yep, those hideous green walls.
You had them?
And the horrible black and green mats, and I remember all of it,
yeah. That green was from the boxing gym that was in there for all 2 months.
It smelled like it, yeah.
Before we moved in there. Well, I think it smelled like it because of the sewer line that was collapsed.
Is that what that was?
It. Yeah.
Collapsed sewer line, that gets you every time.
So if you guys don't know, I mean, like, our first year of business, we had the sewer line in the building actually collapsed because it was just so old. It was cast iron. It was like, I remember when we started getting it was fine. The toilet would be fine. And all of a sudden, like, when we started getting busier and more people in there, it was like the toilet back up. I'm like, all right, so who the hell is flushing shit down the toilet? Like, I went through and, like, I would ask, like, I had to make an announcement, like, hey, guys, make sure you only put, like, toilet paper down the toilet and no sanitary products or paper towels. And it would still happen, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is a problem. I got my plumber friend to come in here and put his camera down there.
Everybody needs a plumber friend with a camera.
Oh, man, because, normally it's like $350, $400 just to put the camera down the drain. Mm-hmm. So he snaked the whole place for me, and he put, like, 3 full snakes. Like, if you guys know how long those things are, like, we're like, is it on the roof? Like, is the snake on the roof? Like, where's this going? So that's when we put the camera down there, and he's like, man, I think you have a collapse. And that was a whole conversation with our landlord at the time. They were convinced that it was something we did. I remember the conversation the plumber had. He's like, wait. So let's say you have a 69 Mustang. It drives perfectly fine, never had any issues with it. You loan it to me, and I'm driving it, and the engine blows up. Is it my fault, or is it just an old car? He's like, it's not the same. He's like, but it is. I remember hearing this conversation, and they wouldn't hire him for the work. I was a little bit pissed about that. You could have done it for way cheap, like a better price for them essentially, but they wanted somebody that worked closely with the city. They ended up getting the plumber in there. Sure enough, that they're like, hey, we're uncovering the sewer line. We had to check. Remember the trench?
I do remember that.
There was a trench with like a wood a wood bridge that went over it. Oh, man. And the tattoo shop was letting us use their restroom and stuff like that too.
It was very nice of them.
Yeah, that was very nice of Rob, all those guys over at Ventura Tattoo.
But if you're like, if you're neighbors with especially a Muay Thai gym, like you're pretty much gonna kowtow to a lot of their like reasonable or unreasonable requests. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever you guys say, just please don't kick a hole in me.
Yeah, no, they're those guys at Ventura Tattoo, they're freaking awesome. Like it's funny, a lot of people can be like, oh, you're near a tattoo shop. I'm like, well, one, they're martial artists.
Yeah, they're great.
He practices kung fu also, and 2 is like. They're some of the nicest people and they're there all the time. Like if we're closed, they're probably still there next door.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of those things that I always, he's like, you essentially live in security, but we don't live here. We're just here all the time, you know? There's always somebody there at the shop doing work. So having them next door has been really awesome. Like when we had, they were doing all the plumbing stuff, you know, we all pitching together to get like porta potties and stuff like that, make sure everybody was all good. I remember, so we had that, they ended up redoing all the plumbing, and the plumber was like, he called me, he's like, hey, we're uncovering the pipe right now. So I came over and like watched them uncover the fucking pipe. Because the landlord
want to be there for that.
Because I was like, well, is it something that we did or is it old pipe? Because after the conversation, so we had to wait like however long, like 5 days for that to finally happen. So I had to get all the permits and stuff. And they're digging it up. And, you know, sure enough, there's a corroded old cast iron pipe. I was like, oh. So that's where that smell came from. I'm assuming that stank. Before we had our ozonator and all. Is this
your official apology to everyone who had to...
Yeah, anybody who was there during the stanky time when we first opened up, I'll blame 100% on that. I mean, like, we were technically a sublease at that point. So, you know, had I leased the place, anybody out there who's thinking about starting a business, make sure, I don't care when they say it was last inspected, have them check out the pipes as part of you moving in before you sign your lease. Because...
Get your plumber friend to put his camera
down, make sure everything's good. Exactly. Get the plumber friend to put his camera down there and make sure you're all good. Because that was, they talk about setbacks. That's like one of those things that you look up like on business stuff. They say that can like bankrupt a business if that stuff happens. I heard of another school locally here. They had a collapsed sewer line, but they thought it was just a blockage. Mm-hmm. And
so I guess need to send more shit down there to push it out of the way, right?
So they sent the hydro, it was like the hydroblasting, like the unclog a sewer line. It's like this super high pressure water, and I guess it came up through the cracks in the foundation, and it just put shit everywhere. I heard about it. I was like, oh fuck! I'm glad I didn't do that.
That would definitely,
You know, we had to clean up all this like concrete dust and stuff for the painters, like left like concrete splatter all over our mirrors and stuff we just got. Like, man, I'm still pissed about that. They still never refinished our floors since we did. Now I'm getting pissed off remembering about this stuff. Whatever.
Change the subject.
Yeah, I'll change the subject. But yeah, you were there for all that stuff. That was good times seeing some of the fighters and stuff like that come up through the ranks and stuff also, and some of the students growing and
had a lot of growth. Yeah, in a very short time too.
Yeah, we just passed up like 5-year mark in Ventura.
It's like that.
Yeah, it's 6 years since we had the idea of Pu'u Muay Thai. Like when I fill out the DBA paperwork, it was 6 years. May 15th is like my official day for our anniversary. So happy birthday, Pu'u Muay Thai! Thanks for being part of it. Boom. Today is May 16th, by the way, so it's happy belated birthday. But seeing that kind of stuff, you know, grow and, you know, go through all that stuff, you know, with China, and, you know, you helped me out when I went to Thailand a couple times. And you were working as program director for the academy and stuff too. So I was super grateful. It allowed me to meet my wife.
That was a good time. That was.
Yeah. Well, if you guys don't know, program director essentially means you're Johnny on the spot if there needs to be Johnny on the spot. And the way the academy was set up at the time, you needed to be Johnny on the spot a lot.
There was a lot of spots to be on.
Because the Johnny on the spot at the time was living next to the academy, a.k.a. me. And Kevin did not live next to the academy. So, much respect to anybody that does that kind of work, because it's not easy.
It's a 2-person job, definitely.
Yeah, it's
goodness gracious.
Working.
I'd do it again.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was definitely fun.
I learned a lot by having you like in that position, and I think you did too. Now you're doing electrical work, right? Electrician, apprentice.
Electrician. Yeah. Probably one of my favorite jobs I've ever had before.
Which makes sense because your technical mindset, you like nerd out and stuff.
Yep.
So, yeah, I know we were just talking before this about. What are they talking about?
Norway, mostly.
We're talking smack about Norway. Kevin's like, oh, it's terrible there. We're like, have you been? He's like, no, but it's not funny when I say it. It's probably nice. You know, we were talking about some game stuff. I know you're saying you didn't have any video game consoles.
No, you know what? I think I'm okay with it, too.
Yeah. I haven't had, like, beginning of this lockdown, I had some time because I was like, oh, maybe we'll open up next week. And it's like, no, we didn't open up. You got me into Dark Souls down the path.
I'm sorry.
Oh, man. That game, I think the fighting ability in that is like what I nerd out on so hard, like parrying ability.
It's a very,
rolls.
very difficult mechanic to understand.
Yeah.
But once you get it, I mean, it's just like anything, right?
Yeah.
Once you get it, it's fun. Then you can play with it.
I had Carolina try to beat the tutorial boss.
Tutorial boss?
Yeah, she couldn't do it.
It's hard,
I laughed.
man.
She's like, I didn't try that long. I'm like, it was about 45 minutes.
It's one of the more frustrating games. I remember even as an adult, I think I was 31 or 32 playing that game. I was stuck on a boss, and I remember vividly like it was yesterday throwing a tantrum on the floor. Like, I'm not that far from that. That was, not my proudest moment.
But I think that game will bring that out in anybody.
Anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody. I definitely rage quit.
Praise the sun.
Multiple times.
Praise the sun. That definitely, going in. Have you played any of the fighting games that are out there?
No.
Yeah,
My thing is, like, I really enjoy playing video games with people now.
Yeah.
It's like I really don't care what the game is. I enjoy the communal experience.
Well, they have the PSVR. I saw my friend Crew Rich out in Hawaii. Like, he has this thing called the MyZone heart rate monitors. I actually looked at him before this lockdown happened from the Muay Thai Business Summit. They're these heart rate monitors, and you become a licensed facility, and you can keep track of everybody's fitness activity, even outside of, like, training. And you can basically get points for how intense your workouts are, and you can create a leaderboard. So he was doing his exercise to stay up on the leaderboard using the boxing game from PSVR. I think it was like Rocky 2 or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but it was showing the way he's moving and the way the headset moved with it. It was like, it's straight up. You're like shadow boxing in a game, but you get to actually hit stuff. Sorry, I hit the table on that one.
I'm sure the table's fine.
Yeah, sorry, table. But doing that kind of stuff, I think seeing that technology come further and further along, like I really hope that doesn't end up replacing actual martial arts training, especially with what we're going through right now.
I think you'll lose like a few neophytes to it, but those people wouldn't have stayed training martial arts anyways.
Well, my thing too is, after this, I don't know if I told you this, but we're gonna keep up the live classes after this too. Like that's one of those things, like straight up, we're keeping that. It's one of those things that I wish I would have done a long time ago.
Well, that's the wonderful thing about technology. It is like you can now you can teach people in Kansas or Idaho who just don't have access to martial arts.
Well, like one of my friends, he was saying, like, some of his old instructors who moved away, like they're enrolling and training with him again. It's like they have their significant other who trained with them, and maybe they met the martial arts, and they're trained together, like, in the quote-unquote virtual academy that they have, like either set up at their home or whatever it may be. I think it's pretty epic to see. Like, we were also talking about that. It was like, with the hands-on learning stuff at the beginning of this podcast, it's crazy to see. And if we can get the technology to the point where, like, the live scanning and stuff like that with, like, when you're moving, like, imagine, like, you're playing against a computer in those boxing games. Imagine if you're playing against somebody else.
Right.
Like, the latency was low enough. Yeah. Oh, that would be epic, right?
And they say with VR, your latency is near zero because you're not working through a screen.
Yeah,
so
it's right there.
Getting live. Yeah. So that's definitely something that I think is...
Yeah, there's no screen lag time on that. No. And then if it comes into, like, the internet speeds being fast enough, which it looks like we're getting to. They're doing, like, the 5G stuff. Conspiracy theory or not, it's fast as fuck. Yeah. That shit's fast as fuck, And, there's some people, like, we're also, I think earlier I was talking to someone on a hike with, we were talking about cryptocurrency. We're talking about, like, how cryptocurrency works and stuff like that. And it's like, dude, if you have faster internet, you can essentially mine cryptocurrency at a faster rate, essentially, from my understanding. Crypto nerds or whatever out there, don't take my word as gospel. Talk shit, please. Educate me. Maybe I have somebody on to talk about it. One of our students is actually very involved in, like, the cryptocurrency market. I remember the first time hearing about it was, like, being a real thing. It was, like, probably, like, 2010. I met this guy from LA at one of the gyms in Bangkok. I'm like, what are you doing out here? He's like, I'm doing a cryptocurrency meeting in China. Like, he's running, like, a workshop, like a seminar. It's like a 3-day seminar out there. Just fucking dude disappeared off the face of the planet. I think he just made it. Yeah. As far as I know.
He's ascended.
Yeah,
he's become cryptocurrency.
He's become part of the grid.
Yeah. Yeah, the more I study it, the less I understand it.
Yeah.
Because it's not really a thing that has this like this creation. You know what I mean? It doesn't have parents. It just kind of is this analogous.
It's a thing.
This
It
thing
is.
to the
It just
internet.
is. Yeah.
And it just is, and there's no way of trying to understand it in our formal way of understanding something.
Well, the crazy thing was, like when cryptocurrency first started, like I remember Bitcoin when it first came out. Like I used to play like Quake and Counter-Strike. You know, we had this thing called IRC. It's like a chat room. Did you ever mess around with that?
No.
No, you weren't that much of a nerd back in high school. Okay. Different kind of nerd. So you go in there and that's where you'd meet up to talk to like other gamers, like and have like clan matches and stuff like that. Before they had all this matchmaking built into the game. Mm-hmm. So you know, one of the guys I used to play with all the time, he like all of a sudden it was like, hey, click this link, you can download this Bitcoin I'm giving you. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, yeah, get it. It's gonna be the currency of the future. I want to say this was like 2003. Yeah, I want to say like 2003. Mm-hmm. I'm like, how do I use this? He's like, oh, wait, you could trade it for me. You want to trade some Bitcoin for this, like for like a service? I'm like, but like, what? How does that work as like a transaction? Like, it doesn't mean anything. It's like, oh, well, it will one day. I'm like, no, well, long story short, I had 10 Bitcoin in a wallet, and that's in the trash somewhere.
No,
that's worth a fuck ton of money now.
Yeah. Was that 17 years ago?
Yeah,
that'd be worth a lot.
Yeah,
you can go find that, man.
It's gone. That thing got wiped clean. It was running Windows 98.
Ah,
yeah, and that was like an upgrade for it. That computer was so fucking old, you know. But seeing that come through and become like a thing now, and like, you know, with this whole coronavirus thing, they're talking about the stimulus package. The first one they came up with was to have a new form of cryptocurrency that was controlled by the central bank in the U.S. And it was like, wait, what the fuck?
That's the whole point of cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
There is no central currency. Yeah.
So, well, it would be overseen by them, essentially. And it still was like a blockchain format from what they were saying. But they didn't roll it out. They decided not to. But seeing that and going back to when I was first introduced to it by that gamer, I was like, whoa. Like, I guess this is like, you know, we never got our hoverboards, but we got digital currency.
We have hoverboards?
No, we don't.
I mean, they're called hoverboards.
They're called hoverboards, but they're not actual.
They're not. They're nothing. Yeah,
like nothing like from Back to the Future.
Absolutely nothing close to Back to the Future.
Yeah, we're promised hoverboards.
Let's get back to this topic of martial arts and technology. I think I think there's a lot of gems in there that I think we could definitely just kind of maybe scratch the surface of.
Well, imagine like one of my friends. He has a gym in Washington. In his virtual classes, he's doing virtual one-on-ones with like champions in Thailand. Mm-hmm. His students can book private lessons with champions in Thailand. Which, given most of them don't really speak English, so you're missing out on like the physiognomy, the hands-on learning, and you're missing out on the verbal. You're just getting visual, which is like okay, like. You know, some of them do speak English,
right? But
like, I wonder how much of that gets lost because of the lack of communication, or I don't know if he's like helping translate. I don't know. Right. I don't know.
But I think if once you get to a certain level of understanding and I wouldn't say expertise, but at least proficiency, I mean, it is really easy to kind of be like, hey, think about it this way. Oh, okay, and then it'll change your entire practice of your technique.
Yeah.
Or, hey, try this, and all you have to do is say it to somebody and. You're not telling them how to do the technique.
No, you just
say, hey, this is how you develop more
mindset.
Power. Yeah. Think about this way. Try not to do it that way. Do it this way.
And that was, you know what? Speaking of that, there was Nathan Corbett, Carnage. He was talking about
that guy was so fun.
Dude, that was an awesome seminar, right?
Yeah.
When he had his first seminar and once he got his green card and everything all settled over here, and he took us out to dinner with some of his friends. He's talking about mindset for some of the stuff. I'm not going to share it here because he has a great seminar. All I got to say is anybody out there, definitely book him for one-on-ones. He's available at the Ruka Gym down in Oceanside. Seminars also. I think you can just find him. I think it's just Nathan Carnage Corbett or like Carnage Corbett on Instagram. But his mindset behind fighting, like some of the stuff, it made me just think about it a little bit differerly. But in a very simplified way. It's just like, oh, I never thought about that. And it's from somebody who's fought like the who's who in his weight division, the Gokhan Sakis and all these other, like, you know, Tyrone Spong, these crazy motherfuckers out there.
Won too, right?
Yeah, he's won and he's lost.
Okay.
Yeah, his stuff with Tyrone Spong, that was interesting. Those are interesting fights. But going back to the technology aspect of it, you know, learning that mindset, that coaching, the mental coaching stuff, I think a lot of that could be done through virtual lessons and stuff as well. Like, that's one of the things I've been fucking with is I've taken a couple of courses on, like, mindset coaching and stuff like that. This guy, remember Brian Dobler?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a mindset coach. So he's interesting. Like, he did a segment at the Muay Thai Business Summit. Great guy. Some of the stuff he did too is like these courses I was doing. Is like, oh, I get it. This is why he's doing these, like, these anchors, these focus anchors and stuff like that. And there's some things that I played with because I was taught it coming through, like, fighting and stuff through other trainers that I had throughout my life and, like, fighting career. And they unintentionally, they didn't call it a focus anchor. They called it something else, but that's what it was. What a focus anchor is a point where you're very focused on something, whether it being, like, most times to be relaxed. Because the more relaxed you are, you notice in martial arts, the more adept you are going to be able to defend and to attack, offense and defense. You can be present. You're not stuck in your head. And really having that allows you to, I guess, overcome the situation that's at hand, or see, you know, be able to pull those tools out that you have to defend yourself as a martial artist through, like, programming. And having a focus anchor that allows you to recenter and refocus back to that allows you to really fight. Like, I had a trainer who's like, his thing was like, remember, like, you know, he would say this, like, when I was training with him. His name was Fred, rest in peace, Mr. Fred Loomis. He's my first Muay Thai trainer. I came back to him after I'd been living, like, I went to Thailand a bunch. I was training Kunakweed a lot. And I was back up here, and he was training me. He was working on some focus anchors. He would just say stuff to me, like, during training. He's like, hey, man, you've been training Muay Thai for a long time, like 8-9 years now. He's like, you know what the hell you're doing. You can play with your timing and stuff like that. He's like, remember, you really want to do this. I'm like, yeah, I really want to do this. He saw me getting nervous before my fight, like, as I was walking to the ring, and then he just said, hey, remember, this is something you want to do, right? Like, yeah, this is something I want to do. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Relax.
Yeah, relax. And I had, like, the best performance. Like, I dropped the guy with the elbow in the fucking first, like, 45 seconds of the fight. I was like, oh, shit. Like,
is that one?
Yeah, chop elbow.
I love it.
Yeah, and it's being relaxed and present enough and using those focus anchors. And that's stuff that we've used. I've created some similar focus anchors for our athletes as well when they go into competition to stay relaxed. And I really feel like people who've actually embraced it and listened, they tend to do better. You know, Justine did really good with it.
Yeah, that's half the thing.
Did really good with it.
I don't think people realize how much of as much as you're fighting somebody else, there's, like, this entire battle going on within you when you're in a competition.
Yeah, even just before.
Yeah,
even just before.
So much going on. It's just like having the gall just to be able to get up there and fight with somebody else is
in front of a bunch of people.
I mean, you can do it. Yeah, you can do it just one-on-one and still nerve-wracking. But yeah, in front of a whole stadium or an entire slew of individuals.
Yeah, it's definitely something else. And if you're not present enough to realize it's just a thing, like it's just a thing. It's gonna pass in a half hour. Yeah,
remember. Yeah.
And if you just realize that, it ends up becoming, like, a really powerful thing. I actually talked to Jeremy about this too. He did a very good job at some mental prep stuff. And he ended up, you know, he got the CXF title. He fought against, like, the top kid that was in there. He lost him before. And I remember I wasn't there for that fight. And, like, we didn't do as much one-on-one time. We did more one-on-one time leading up to this one. And, you know, we trained and prepped for it. And, man, he was losing. He got hit with the thing that we were training for him to not get hit with. Then he ended up being able to pull off, you know, getting, like, he caught the guy and ended up getting ground pound TKO. And I think a lot of it had to do with mindset and being able to, like, refocus and relax. Like, I've had my ass kicked by all these guys already. I'm able to pull back and do better in the round. You know, it's just a thing. Like, don't worry about it. Water under the bridge, so some people would say. But, you know, going on to that, I think that could really be hammered on and taught through one-on-one, just talking. It could be on the phone. It does better when you see the person's face. Yeah. You can tell how engaged people are. You can also see their breathing, right, and what they're doing too, because a lot of it is breathing.
I feel it's a very personal thing too.
Yeah.
You do want to work with your coach to figure out what it is that your focus needs to be on during a fight, and what it is that usually can kind of dissuade you from staying focused on the fight.
Yeah.
Which, and that's the one thing I love about martial arts, and that's, I remember growing up, it's martial arts, as much as it's, like, you love to be surrounded by a community, and you love to be surrounded by other people doing it, it's an extremely personal experience, extremely personal, and you can see sometimes, especially as an instructor, I know you've seen it, people definitely struggling with the whole idea of, like, because you look at it and you're like, oh, I want to get in shape, like, I can't wait to, go to Thailand and fight, but you really get down to it, it's like, it'll challenge you in ways I don't think people ever really think they're ever going to be challenged.
Yeah.
Really don't,
Well, I'll use this as a reference. There's thing, it was called, I think it was called Running on the Sun. It's a documentary about ultramarathon runners at Badwater. Have you heard of Badwater?
No.
Ultra? So it's run through Death Valley.
Okay.
There's a guy in his fucking 80s who ran it from London. He's coming through and he's like, gotta take off, give me some water, with his wife, and she's like concerned about him. She's like, I don't like him doing it every year, but whatever, it's what he likes.
Uh-huh.
But one of the guys who was prepping for it, he's like, man, I just had to, like, this is not something I ever thought I would do. I had to create this alter ego that could do it, this superhero that can do it. And he can do it. I can't, but this guy, this alter ego, this guy that I made up my mind can do it.
That's so fascinating.
And I feel like a lot of athletes are very successful, who are successful, are able to do that. And that's why some of them borderline, crazy. Really good athletes. Tony Ferguson, we were talking about him, his UFC fight, very relevant to this conversation. Guy has the mental fortitude of, like, and he's always had that since I've known him. And he was always, like, people are like, oh, it's a show. It's like, no, that's Tony. Like, that's just how he's always been. And that's why he's successful. I don't know if it's like an alter ego or they really embody that alter ego enough where it actually becomes them and they can actually, like, that becomes their normal. Because they're just embodied in that their whole life. And I think that's why it's hard for some fighters who are really good to retire. Because they don't want to let go
of the body. Yeah, they have to die in a sense.
Yeah, in some way, or like they have to shift their ego. They say no ego's in the door. Not saying that ego like in a bad way, but they have to shift their mindset towards something else to form their new personality, a sense of being to something else.
Right.
And it's very hard, especially if you put on TV in front of millions of people. You saw it, like we're talking about fighting in front of people. One-on-one's hard. The UFC, Jacksonville, it's in front of nobody right now.
Right.
ONE FC did the same thing, like when the shutdown was happening, won fighting championship. And then I was talking with Coach Josh, my brother Josh, about this too. I was one of the fighters at Kit Kem Ton Gym in Bangkok. He won the Zuzu 8-man tournament. That was like a highlight of his career, is winning this fucking tournament belt. He was a big underdog. It's an 8-man tournament that goes throughout the year. And there was no audience there. It was like the weirdest thing. You could tell he was like, looking like, oh, cool, like this is it. Like, and there's nobody there. It's like, yeah, you get a big payday and everything, but I think that's where it really comes down to is like the people who perform well are going to perform well whether there's people there or not. There's some people who do perform well under that pressure, but I think sometimes that can be to their detriment also. Because it's like
you need that
the bad part of their ego gets to them. That's like bad. Like in my sense, it's like
again, that's why I love martial arts.
Some people thrive with it.
Maybe their path isn't to become a champion, and even if they are a champion, that's not what they're supposed to be learning. It's supposed to be to learn that humility and to kind of subdue that ego, or at least kind of put it at a death of sorts.
Yeah, the negative connotations of the ego away. So. I think it's pretty amazing. Like you were talking about people, I want to fight, I want to go to Thailand and do these things. They end up developing and realizing it's like, hey, you could do it. Like that person did it. They started from nothing. And they see it happen. And you can really find out like, oh, is this something you actually want to do or is this something you think you want to do?
Right.
Whereas like, from my experience, like 90% of people just think they want to do it.
Right.
Maybe 10% are actually follow through with it. That's why I had like a lot of respect for Nick, Nick Donahoe.
Nick who? No, I don't know who that is.
So I had a lot of respect for that guy because he really had his mindset. He's like, I want to do this, and he took his lickings like in competition training and everything like that. And then he's old. He was older. He's 37. Like
ancient.
Ancient Nick. We just joke. What, you're 57? But, not having, like, any combative experience and then going into that, we flew to Kansas City. was first fight against some 23-year-old kid with ripped six-pack, and Nick looks like, somebody he was a mortgage broker or something like that. It looked like he'd been behind a desk, and dude, he freaking, they flew out of the ring. Like, he had a good fight. And then finally we fought against our friends from Six on Muay Thai down in Burbank. And we're joking, like, man, we flew away to Van Nuys, we could have done this back home. But, Nick got, he got dropped in that fight, like, pretty bad. I didn't think he was going to get up. Like, he got hit with a hook, like, when he threw a knee, dropped his hands down. Exactly, he always said, I did exactly what you told me not to do. And, I was like, oh, well, crap, if he doesn't get up, like, it's okay. It's amateur fight. But he's, like, straight up face planted on the ground. And I see him, like, put his hands in his face and, like, get up and, like, slowly get up, and he finished the fight. I was like, oh, shit. Like, so when you see that kind of stuff out of people, and I think it was... he created that for himself through hard training. Like, hey, I got my ass kicked a bunch through training and all this stuff. Like I can handle this. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna finish. I was super proud of that guy because of how he handled that in that capacity. So you think about everyday person that comes in and says they want to fight.
Right.
He was like the 1% of the 90% that actually follows through and does it. And really, becomes like a student in that aspect.
That's the thing with martial arts. Now, I think a lot of people, when they first come into gyms or dojos or whatever you want to call them, they don't understand. It's like you're making a decision right now to be a martial artist later, but you realize that like every day that you show up, you become a little bit different, like a little bit better or a little bit greater. So it's like when you're making a decision now to do something later, people don't make that connection that you're not going to be the same person 6 months from now or a year from now when So I really think that's something you can tell people, but they may or may not listen to you. But you do. I've seen people come in, especially with the kids and the teens and like the younger individuals who are really hungry for it. Like if you look at their development from day 1 to 6 months or a year or 3 years, Aiden, for example, I mean? Lost 100 pounds, sucked at Muay Thai when he first started.
He was into fitness and everything.
Now he's out there beating up 40-year-olds in competition.
We talked about that.
And it's like, I don't think people don't realize how it's going to change you. Because, being a martial artist it's not an easy process.
No.
It's not a fun process by any means
either. It is for the right people, for the, like, depending on what your goal is and, like, what your timeline is. I feel that a lot of people put like this unnecessary timeline. I have to be this good by this point.
Right.
It's like, no, just train. Like you'll get better over time.
Just have fun, and that's the trick.
If fun, then you're gonna keep doing it.
And you're gonna learn better. And but it's not always gonna be fun.
No, there's hard times for sure, especially if you're competing.
At the end of the day, it's like if I could tell people that there is something that they can do, they just may not be able to do it today, but after if you're 1% better every single day after a certain period of time, that all adds up, right?
Yeah, this is gonna be a lot better than the person who stepped in the foot in the door.
Yeah, it's like if you look at everybody who's training with us now, they are completely different people from the first. Sorry, I hit the table again.
Say you're sorry.
I'm sorry. They're completely transformed.
Somebody uses reference, because you've had this conversation a lot. And you say, the surefire way to shoot yourself in the foot is to compare yourself to somebody else's progress.
Yeah.
And I had a student who was comparing themselves to somebody else. And I had another student who used to do that. And I'm like, hey, come here. I want you to chime in on this conversation. The other student was like, what the hell? And I told him what was going on. He's like, oh, yeah. He's like, hey, let me ask you a question. He's like, he's like, you've been training for, like a year and a half, 2 years? He's like, all right, could you kick your ass 2 years ago? And his eyes lit up, and he kind of like, his shoulders off. He's like, you know what? Yeah, I kicked my ass 2 years ago. Yeah, that guy was a pussy. I could fuck that guy up. And it was like that was a very powerful analogy. I feel like for people, and it's hard for them to see that within themselves when they're in the trenches. For us as instructors, we see it. It's easy.
Right.
But it's hard. It's like when you're around somebody who's growing, it's hard to see the growth if you're there every day seeing it.
Don't focus on the finger, what I mean, or else you miss the moon's glory. So it's like you got to think about the big picture as much as possible.
Did you just make what was that?
Enter the Dragon.
And of course, you dropped Enter the Dragon quotes, but they're good.
If it's applicable, then
use it. If it works, do it.
Yep. Which is another good tenet of martial arts.
What?
If it works, do
it.
If it works, do it. Who cares where it comes from? I don't care if it's from this system or that system. If it's going to keep you alive, freaking do it.
Do it. Yeah, that goes into a lot of like I think training philosophies for Muay Thai too that have really developed over the course of like the years. It's like body kick, it works, do it. Leg kick works, do it.
It's gonna hurt. Yeah. If you get punched in the face, you don't care what country that person learned that punch from. No, it's still gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt. Yeah. Elbow works, do it. Yeah. Knee works, do it. Like that stuff's all very simple, and like the method of training for like Muay Thai, like I feel like they really refine it because they're using it in like a combat sports sense
all the time
for decades.
And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Muay Thai is it's even in its sport aspect, it's still horribly deadly if you're gonna put it into like real. It's like with Taekwondo, you can't really get away with that, because it's like you have headgear and chest gear, and you can't do these techniques and you can't do those techniques. And I think Taekwondo is great for self-defense if you use the right techniques, but sport Taekwondo, not so much. Same thing with like sport karate. There's just the devastation doesn't exist because as devastating as karate and Taekwondo are. You can't use those in competition because people will be getting devastated. So it's
it's like, that's where I think doing some sort of cross training for a lot of those people. Mm-hmm. When you think about, and that's where it came into like I was talking about like Nick Wilson, those guys. Yeah, they ended up going through and learning like cross training, learning these other legitimate martial arts, and I heard from his Muay Thai instructor, Patrick. He's like, I had to keep telling him to stop doing karate and practice Muay Thai because you're here to learn Muay Thai. It's like, you can do the karate stuff and get away with it. Right. But when you get somebody who's like your size, your level, and knows Muay Thai, like you're gonna have a harder time.
And that's the beauty of Muay Thai. Like we were just saying, is it's getting tested every single day through competition. Mm. Every single day it's getting so you realize, okay, this doesn't work, that works, and you really can refine. Where you can refine the shit out of it, you know what I mean? Because if you have all this data to be able to compile information and say, okay, every time this person did this technique, it doesn't matter who did it, this is what happened. This is the consequence of using this technique in this situation.
Yatsen Klai's left kick.
Get rid of it. Yeah. For like, every time somebody did this, it works. Okay, we have all this data to, say, okay, that's we can empirically prove that this works. Then do it. And that's like I said, it's the beautiful thing with Muay Thai is it's constantly being refined because it's constantly being used.
Yeah. That comes into also, I actually saw, I keep dropping Yatsen Klai as the person, but I saw his trainer, Big Yak. He was like his pad holder for a long time. And for those that don't know, a lot of the like fighters like Yatsen Klai, Pokaos, they get bought out from other gyms around the countryside in Thailand. They're already like kind of established local champions usually, especially Fairtex. You become a Fairtex fighter. Typically, you're already a well-established champion, and they buy you take on the Fairtex name. Yatsen Klai Fairtex, Narapol Fairtex. Now they have like the women champion Stamp Fairtex. When they go through that, they already have like a way of winning. They know how to win. They're champions. They've probably had a couple hundred fights by that point. And when they come into Fairtex, the trainers they hire from Fairtex, they don't come up through Fairtex. They come up through other gyms. Big Yak, who is Yatsen Klai's pad holder, came from the gym that Ajahn Nakweed was from. And they're known for having really good trainers because they had so much experience. One of the longest running Muay Thai gyms there, Luke Prabat. Luke Prabat being the name of the gym. It used to be called Luke Prabun. But they had a couple hundred years of fight experience. So you have all that data compiled into these fighters. You have really high, very efficient fight IQ that you're able to develop. So if they're able to have that as a trainer, and then you're training a champion, literally all this guy would do, I would see him when he was holding pads for Yatsen Klai, he'd be looking at his feet to see where his feet were going. He didn't look at his body or his hands. He's like, he knows how to keep his hands up. He knows basics. He knows technique. I'm just going to look at where his feet go. Because it will allow him to set up his strikes much better, to be in a better evasive or defensive position, or offensive, depending on what he was trying to get him to do on the pads. And when you talked about computer, that's what made me think about is like these trainers are so high level. These fighters are so high level working together. You just see them, it works like a computer. Mm-hmm. They just come together and just like, you just do this, adjust, and it's like, there's your formula for winning your next fight. Right. And it's like, really? That's it? Yeah, that's it? Okay. Because they're so refined through it. And they know what the other person's bringing to the table and stuff like that too. And I'm not sure how much of that could be taught virtually.
No.
That's all hands-on stuff too. I was talking to Matt Lucas. He's like, yeah, people fighting like in Thailand, for instance, if the ring's wet, you're used to fighting because they'll fight in the rain. They'll fight outside. If it rains, they're still fighting. Mm-hmm. It's like learning where the slick spots are in the ring, knowing like, hey, if this guy's a good kicker, I'm gonna get him into the slick part of the ring so he can't kick as well, or I can sweep him and take away a little bit of his morale or confidence in that kick. So seeing that kind of stuff is definitely a hands-on experience through it. So crazy shit. Well, what else you guys got going on the rest of the day after this?
Rest of the day? Mm-hmm. I don't know, to be honest with you.
Hang out on the boat?
Hang out on the boat. Maybe get some sanding done. What time is it? Oh,
yeah.
Probably can't sand after 5. So.
Too loud or what?
Way too loud. There's some grumpy people who live
on the boats. Yeah.
Extremely grumpy. Because
they probably lived there a long time, too.
They've been there a long time, and they want their peace and quiet, and they just want to watch the fish swim by and the birds fly. So, last thing they want to hear is a sand.
Cool. Well, hey, man, thanks for coming in today. We should do it again sometime.
Perfect. Checks in the mail, right?
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say before we leave?
Keep training, never quit.
Keep training, never quit, even when the academy's closed?
No.
Especially then, right?
Especially then.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's going to be drop-off. We love training with each other, but, I mean, it's always fun to continue training after a certain period or a long hiatus from training.
Oh, I cannot wait.
Wouldn't you much rather come back better than you were when you left?
And a lot of people, they're doing, like, more shadow boxing.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what's funny? When you guys come back, anybody who didn't take part in this,
you're gonna know.
You're gonna know. You're gonna know.
Real bad.
Like maybe conditioning, if you're not running, is fine, but like technically, you're gonna be better. So, cool, man. All right. Well, then you have a good rest of your day.
Likewise.
All right.
Thanks, man.